When Kai was diagnosed, I actually believe that our son woke us up out of stressful careers, out of a marriage that was on the rocks. There was no more moving forward and ignoring it. It was like, maybe he's trying to tell us something.
For 300,000 years, the human race was all hunter-gatherers. If you're a hunter-gatherer and you're walking through the forest or the jungle and you're not noticing everything around you all the time, you may miss that flash of light over there that's the rabbit that's gonna be your lunch and you'd starve. Or you might miss that flash of light over there that's a bear that wants to eat you and you'd get weeded out of the gene pool. So distractibility would be an asset in that world.
Being labeled ADHD was the start of me thinking that there's something wrong with me.
The problem with ADHD is just we slap a label on, when in fact, it's just closed the door to our being able to find out what the real situation is.
We said we don't want a label. We don't want the collateral symptoms of a label put on top of a learning difference.
We're dissing kids when we label them ADHD.
I'm 32 years old now. I'm married. I have 3 kids. I still default back to something is wrong with me.
If you look at the diagnoses or the symptoms of ADHD, that's children.
Kids are born innately curious, innately playful, innately creative. There's something going on in school that stymies curiosity, that stymies creativity. We've got to figure out what that is.
The world is changing so fast. The thing that we need to change fast is education system.
The major thing that's driving the diagnosis of ADHD in the United States is our school systems. They're set up as basically assembly lines.
Sit down, be quiet, and listen. If I'm a high-energy person and I'm put into that environment, I'm going to disrupt that environment.
And so more and more parents are stressed. Guess what? More kids are going to get diagnosed. And then we say, the kid's got a disease, let's give him a pill.
And we've got to stop trying to put up this false story that everybody seems to rally around. Oh my God, you've got a poor future. I got to make sure I medicate you. And the media gives it the imprimatur of science and medicine, so you can't question it.
They come across so authoritative and so all-knowing.
The idea of children being medicated with stimulant drugs.
ADHD medications are generally scheduled II alongside of cocaine and opiates.
The pharmaceutical industry and the people who write the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for the American Psychiatric Association are kind of joined at the hip.
Is this not insane to anybody?
And what is the standard brain? Is there any brain in any museum or laboratory under a bell jar that is the standard brain to which all other brains must be compared? And if there is no standard brain, then how can we really tell what is a normal brain and what is an abnormal brain?
Even though ADHD is said to be genetic, my wife and I thought, well, we got to look at everything. We got to look at our relationship. We got to look at our school. Like, is it the right school for our children? We got to look at what we feed our children. It almost became kind of a reevaluation of our whole lifestyle.
A lot of kids were being referred to me for ADHD. What I found was that for most of my patients, I couldn't make a diagnosis of ADHD. It felt like something else was going on. Neglect, parental separation or divorce, parental mental illness, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, substance dependence, incarceration, or domestic violence.
Trauma is this really big piece that's being missed. There's a big intersection of the symptoms of trauma and ADHD.
Our son had jaundice a few days after he was born. Well, that would be a pretty traumatic event if you're taken from your mother 3 days into this world.
When a child has been subject to trauma, it rewires the child's neural networks.
It inhibits the prefrontal cortex, which is necessary for impulse control and executive function, a critical area for learning.
If your parents, grandparents, or your great-great-grandparents were under stress, that stress response actually gets passed on from generation to generation.
However, childhood trauma doesn't sell drugs. ADHD does.
Increasingly, as society is more crisis-driven, those people who thrive in crisis, who can rapidly adapt to change, are going to be more and more important. And many of those people would fall into this category of ADHD.
30 years later, we'll be in trouble because we cannot teach our kids to compete with machine who is smarter. 50% of the jobs that today we have will disappear.
As we're moving to automation, the qualities that will survive are basic human abilities.
The most important trait that human beings have to distinguish them from other species is our flexibility. Kids who are diagnosed with ADHD have more of this flexibility. They have those cutting-edge evolutionary abilities that are going to link us to the future.
Many of the characteristics that are associated with ADHD are being increasingly celebrated.
Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Einstein,
JFK, Michael Jordan,
Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, doers. They got out there, they managed by wandering around.
Over 50% of CEOs in America, of the top 200 companies, did not complete university.
What if these children that are on the spectrum, what if they're actually here to fundamentally question and challenge the way we live as a society?
These kids come here to make profound change on the planet because more people are going to wake up in this lifetime than ever.
The real tragedy is we say these kids have a disorder. Is it they that have the disorder, or are we living in a disordered culture, unable to see the benefits and the promise that they really represent?
Hey, what's up, guys? So today...
He's just such an amazing human being, and there's so many like him out there who just get outcast. You know, I feel they get thrown into this wastebasket of society's most restless children who don't fit in.
Papa, I made this sword, and it's really cool, and I made it out of wood, and I put metallic tape over it. And I made this pouch holder thing.
You want to see what I made?